This is Unit P, Female Reproduction, Part 3, basically looking at the two cycles, the ovarian and the uterine cycle, and the cute word for the day, womb service. So the key ideas in this unit, there are two key ideas, and this unit more than any other, I would encourage you the understanding. So first big idea is that the hypothalamus, through the use of two hormones that we've already seen in the man, FSH and LH, is going to control what the ovary does. And we need to know the ovary does two things. It ripens eggs, releases them on day 14, and it makes the two female sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. These two hormones then are going to be used to control the cycles of the uterus. So we need to understand this coordination between the ovary through the use of estrogen and progesterone controlling the stages of the uterus. So again, looking at a diagram, and I'm sorry for all the writing on the lady, but the brain, in particular, the anterior pituitary, is controlling the ovaries through the use of two hormones, FSH, LH, FSH standing for follicle stimulating hormone. So that's easy to remind us, oh, that's the one that is helping the ovary to ripen the egg. And LH standing for luteinizing hormone. This is the one that is controlling the corpus luteum. Then the ovaries, in turn, are going to release two hormones that will control the cycle of the uterus. And the two hormones that are going to be released are estrogen, controlling the proliferative stage, and progesterone, controlling the secretory stage. Okay, so some key vocabulary here. And again, baby step is we need to know these really, really well. And then on top of that, hopefully some understanding can be built. So the hypothalamus, in this case, is releasing GnRH. The anterior pituitary, we already said FSH and LH. These are all hormones, right? GnRH is a releasing hormone causing the anterior pituitary to release its two hormones. Then the phases of both the ovarian and the uterine cycle. On the bottom, we have the words that go with the ovarian cycle. So follicular phase is day 1 to 13, the ripening of the follicle. Ovulation, day 14, pretty self-explanatory. And then the luteal phase is after ovulation, so day 15 through 28. And this is when we see the corpus luteum inside of the ovary. The flow phase, proliferative phase, and secretory phase describe the three phases of the uterus. Flow phase at the beginning of the cycle, roughly day 1 through 5. Proliferative phase directly following the flow phase, the rebuilding of the uterine lining or the endometrium, day 6 through 14, 15. Secretory phase preceding that, day 16 through 28. And remember, the big idea here is that these three phases, what the ovary is doing, is going to cause the phases of the uterus. So just a quick review of the basic structures. If you're not familiar with those, I would recommend going back and looking those over. But the ovaries, there's two of them. We said already, but never can say it too many times, they make and release eggs. When a female is born, she is born with all her eggs, primordial eggs, not really ripe yet, but still eggs already inside of her ovaries. And throughout her life, the ovaries will release estrogen and progesterone. The ovaries are attached to the oviduct or fallopian tube, and these are these little hand-like structures, fimbriae. The oviduct is where fertilization will occur. Fertilization is the formation of the zygote, and I don't think I spelled that right, but I think you can figure it out. When the zygote is formed, then it must travel down and implant in the endometrium. Remember, this is the lining that is rebuilt and then shed each month. The cervix, the opening to the uterus, and it must dilate during childbirth. The vagina, the birth canal. So this is where the baby's head must descend to get out of the body. So basically, the entire story can be summarized with this one diagram. So spending time with this diagram is a highly recommended activity. So we need to understand and recognize the 4 graphs for the different hormones. LH is the easiest to identify because we see this big spike right before day 13, and this, with the arrow showing us the LA surge, triggers ovulation. So these things are connected. Why does LH surge? Well, LH surges due to this peak in estrogen. So right in here, estrogen is peaking, and at this time, this has a positive feedback effect on the brain, which causes this spike in LH. So that's the tricky part of the cycle. Everything else is pretty much straightforward. FSH, our line that we see starting at the top right here, is what triggers the follicular phase, day 1 to 13. So FSH is in charge of the follicular phase. As the follicle is growing and developing and maturing, it is releasing estrogen, and this is why we see this increase in estrogen. This increase in estrogen is what causes the flow phase to end and the endometrium to rebuild. So right here up till about day 14 is all about rebuilding the endometrium. After ovulation, we see LH up here. LH is triggering, maintaining the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum is releasing progesterone, and progesterone is causing the endometrium to become double in thickness and to secrete a thick mucus. So we call this the secretory phase. So one more time, FSH, follicular phase. The follicle releases estrogen. Estrogen causes the rebuilding of the uterine lining. LH causes the luteal phase. The corpus luteum in the ovary releases progesterone, which causes the secretory phase. Why does the cycle end? Because at the end of the cycle up here, under the effect of the degenerating corpus luteum, progesterone and estrogen levels fall right here, and this causes our uterine lining to be shed, to be released, and this begins the flow phase, which begins the cycle anew. These low hormones also trigger the brain to start releasing more. So in this case, it is negative feedback. The low levels cause the LH and FSH to increase in amount that is released. So just quickly, I'm not going to read through these. I have about 2 minutes left, but you could stop them and go through it. This is just walking you through again what I just said. Hypothalamus releasing GnRH. The pituitary releases FSH and LH. Follicle starts to make estrogen. Around day 12, estrogen levels rise. I said I wouldn't read it, and here I am. But this just walks you through. If you need that walkthrough, you could walk through it one more time. Just ending off here, remember that this cycle, if pregnancy occurs, is going to be different. The corpus luteum will be maintained, and therefore the progesterone and estrogen levels will continue to be released. And this will prevent ovulation and prevent the shedding of the endometrium. Only about 450 cycles in your lifetime, right? And then you reach menopause. Just a reminder, there are 2 kinds of feedback loops going on. A positive feedback is occurring with estrogen and the hypothalamus and ant pit in this spike of LH. And as well, negative feedback loop is also going on. Hope that helped.